Hi, I'm Jamie. This is Dead Dodge Garage, and this continues to be a seized V-Code 446 barrel engine from a 1970 Sport Fury GT. Between my channel and Tom's YouTube channel, Rocky Restorations, there are now a handful of videos out there on this sweet Survivor GT. This thing was parked in the early 1980s, and we're currently working on bringing it back from the dead. As you can see, the interior is still out and in pieces. There are all kinds of different operations happening in here, like lubricating window channels, for example. If you don't know anything about 1970 Plymouth Sport Fury GT 6-barrel cars yet, I don't know, go watch Tom's video because that was an excellent primer on this thing. In my first video on this project, we started tearing the engine down, and this is as far as we got. The entire top end is off. There's the intake with the trio of Holley carburetors, the nasty looking factory air cleaner sitting on it, which is pretty cool. We've got all kinds of small little pieces that will eventually be going back on after some serious cleaning and machining in the case of the cylinder heads. When we left off, I was trying desperately to get the crankshaft turning in this engine. So far, that has still not happened. Now, while we were all off on vacation across the country, this engine was sitting in an upright position, and the cylinders were filled with Marvel Mystery Oil above the pistons we thought were stuck. It hasn't helped yet. As you can see, Trev removed the oil pan and windage tray from this thing after rolling it upside down, and now there's Marvel soaking below the pistons. I really don't see any notable rust, and I'm not sure this is going to do anything. So far, it has not. Looking down toward these pistons, I can't help but notice that the large majority of the cylinder walls look really good. Look how shiny that is. There is a little bit of light rust over here. That's cylinder number 6. Cylinder 4 here, similar deal. So I'm still pretty confident our issue is right there with those two pistons. One way or another, this engine needs to be torn down. So I guess we're just going to go ahead and do that. Conveniently, with the pickup removed, I can get to the cap for number 4 first, so I'm going to do that. We'll see if that rod will move, and that might help break this thing free. If not, we'll start focusing on number 6, but with its rod position, I will not be able to loosen that one. We do suspect at this point that this engine has been apart, and the reason we suspect that is because these rods are numbered, and they were not reinstalled in the correct locations. We've got 7 there where 3 is, 5 in position 1, 1 is back here in position 5, and so on. Looking in the oil pickup can be a good way to roughly assess the condition of your engine. I see mostly hair in here, some little bits of maybe silicone or paper or something like that. No big chunks of metal or anything, so that's good. Funny story though, when Trev pulled the pan off this engine, he found this clip laying in the bottom. It looks like it bounced harmlessly down to the bottom, but that could have been way worse. Speaking of the oil pan, I guess I should show you this. Every one of these HP engines had a windage tray, like that one. Baffles inside this pan. I'm familiar with that one, but I've never seen this before. I do believe that is special to these high-performance C-body engines. This pan is slightly smashed like every other one, and I can't help but notice there are like seeds in here. Here's a look at our first rod cap, bearing, and journal. And I do notice there's some orange in here. Is that from water? Is this rusting? Or maybe it's actual oil and it's orange for some reason. Let's take a look at this bearing. Okay, I need more hands. That is an original bearing. Note the only marking on it is a single letter, D. So if this has been out and dissected, they put it back together with factory parts. I did think number 4 was our culprit here, the main reason this engine wouldn't turn. Check this out. With just that number 4 cap off. Okay, well, anyway, it moved a little bit. There you go. So now if we can get number 6, I think we'd have something. Now remember what I said the other day in the first video. If you get a little bit of movement, you keep working back and forth in that area, and before you know it, you're gonna have a lot of movement. Well, that's already pretty much happening here. It's just going, whoops, farther and farther every time. So I'm gonna keep working that, and hopefully we can get the number 6 cap to somewhere we can take it off. I'll bet you with that one out, this thing just turns free. But if we keep this up, it'll probably turn free anyway. I can't help but notice that the pin on number 4 is a little tight. That could also be part of the issue. There we go. Nice. And the next fun part is we're gonna have to drive that rod out of there if we want to spin this engine over. And watch the journal. Toasty. All kinds of delightful smells coming out of that. I intentionally knocked the rod bolt out of here so I could get a solid whack at this brass drift. It's nice and warm now. Oh, maybe. I didn't bring my stone hone today for some reason, but I did hit this lightly with some Scotch-Brite. As you can see, there are no rust patches right above the piston, so I think that'll come through. It's a little yucky here. One forever later, and I mean like, I don't know, 45 minutes of back and forth and heating and soaking and bashing and losing one of the rod bolts in there. You can just hear it moving. There you go. Nice. That ain't pretty. It's kind of gross. Now we've got number 4 out of there. Whoop. There you go. All right, hone number 4, put it back together and we'll have it running by Friday. Oh, nice. Now it's smooth. Well, it's mostly smooth anyway. So now that we've been victorious with that whole rotating thing, it's time to take this apart anyway. It needs some stuff, like a new balancer. This is terribly pitted. And that is unfortunate because these are special. They're for 6-pack and 6-barrel engines and 70 to 74 440 HPs, something like that. Look at all of that beef. Yep, that's a 6-pack rod, but also a 440 HP rod. Here's what was holding that thing in there. Just a bunch of horrible, rusty muck. Notice, of course, it's not so bad up here at the top, but down at the bottom, this thing would have been sitting in there like this. That's where that stuff gathers. Of course, this cylinder was full of critter stuff and moisture. That would be why. Unfortunately, I did leave a few marks on this thing. I was trying not to do that. I don't know if we'd want to run this piston. Oh, in case you're not hip to this, note the C. There are actually 2 C's on this particular piston. That was a factory marking. They used a few different specific piston sizes. And what they did is they grabbed these and matched them one by one to the finished bores in the blocks. Because the finished size didn't end up all that precise. I don't remember what the intervals on these are, but I know they had at least A through D and maybe even E. Here's a chart for a 4 1/4 bore, and you can see there were sizes from A through E, and the intervals were apparently 0.00025. It's kind of interesting that even though this is a nominal 4.25 inch bore, there is no 4.25000 piston. And the smallest piston, piston number A, is less than 4 1/4. Every piston in this engine seems to be a C. Which is interesting because the sides of the block were marked with letters that the pistons were supposed to correspond to. All I'm seeing on here are D's. These shots can be found in various places on the internet, but I'm looking at a historical page on 440 Source's website. I've actually seen an NOS block just like this one, but you can see the letter markings down the side. On the original engines, these would have been painted over, and then as we saw on our 6-barrel block, the paint kind of came off of the letters, so today we can still see them. It's really neat. Harmonic balancer puller. Okay, I'm gonna have to catch that. Yeah, this thing's pretty rough, which is really unfortunate. These are not easy to find and they aren't affordable when you do. I'm gonna remove the oil pump now. You can tell this is a factory one because of this funky Y shape. The aftermarket ones don't have that and they'll usually say USA on them. Steady. Yeah, it's moving. Timing cover. Sometime today. There you go. You gotta love that tone change. I always prefer to do that instead of prying because prying is a great way to ruin stuff. Ask me how I know. Yeah, this is pretty crusty too. Don't know if we'll be able to use that. Oil deflector, not ruined. Timing chain. This is the factory 3-bolt double row high performance roller timing chain set. And if you have any doubts about that, I'll direct your attention to this DPCD logo, Dodge Plymouth Chrysler DeSoto. Wow, the crank gear popped right off. That usually requires a puller or some heat or beating. Lucky me. The camshaft is out, which is as easy as putting a bolt into one of these holes and carefully working it out the front. I did have to hold the fuel pump push rod, which rides right here, up out of its hole because the engine was upside down. Just wanted to wedge in the way. We're very interested in this cam. It is the correct 3-bolt configuration, and we're hoping it is the correct original. Measuring the duration out of the engine like this is, let's say, challenging. But measuring the lift is really easy if you've got a digital caliper like this one. What you do is you zero this on the base circle here, boop, and then you roll it around and measure the lobe like that. Okay, because I'm doing this one-handed with the camera rolling, the number's slightly different than before. I came up with 0.29 previously. Also, apparently the battery's dying. Yeah, obviously the world's most precise measuring instrument here. Probably not going to get us a usable bit of data today. I measured 0.29 the first couple times I looked at it. That number is the lobe lift. This is the difference between the base circle and the height of the lobe. To calculate valve lift, we multiply that by the rocker ratio, which of course with a stock arm is 1.5. Now if that 0.29 measurement was correct, that means our lift number is 0.435. This cam is supposed to measure 0.450 on the intake side and 0.458 on the exhaust side. Here's the thing though, if that measurement's a little bit less than precise and it actually is 0.30, well that's 450. So is this the right cam? I don't know, probably. Might want to try this with something a bit more precise. Either way, it's the cam that was in there for decades, and we got all of the lifters out. They're in great condition, and we saved them in the proper order, so we can put them right back. That is probably what we're going to do. Working on getting other ancillary pieces out now. For example, the rear main seal cap. This is removed with a 12-point 3/8 socket. From time to time, I've seen these bolt heads in less than stellar condition, and I've had to use a 10mm 12-point socket. Phone died, so missed some stuff, mostly just taking out more rods and pistons. Did learn number 5 was holding us up. Even though it was rotating, it was still a little bit notchy. As soon as that one was out, it turned like butter. For some reason, I'm using the other 6-barrel GT block as a table for the 6-barrel GT parts. I don't know, kind of seems right. Anyway, found a couple interesting things. I know I mentioned that these are stamped with numbers and that the numbers were not in the correct holes matching those numbers. One of these rods, the one that was in number 6, sure, that's a 6, does not have a stamping on it at all. It doesn't really look like rust, it looks like mold. Something I always try to pay attention to is the direction the rod nuts were installed so I can get them back the way they go. These look to have been installed once with that side down and once with that side down. You can tell by how shiny they are. Those were on the number 7 rod. So obviously that rod's been apart. Most of the others I'm seeing just have the one shiny side. Number 8 is out. That pin was a little stubborn too. As you may have noticed, on a bunch of these pistons, we've got stuck rings. Almost all of the top rings are fully stuck, and most of the second rings are half stuck. Some are more stuck than others. I know I pointed out the D's down the side of this engine. Every one of these pistons has a C. We did happen to notice a C punched into the oil pan rail right here on both sides. In earlier engines, you would see all 4 letters, either 2 at this end and 2 at that end, or all down the rail going this way. On later engines, generally you wouldn't have that. You'd have the painted marks. So did someone just ignore the paint and go for this? Did they run out of D's and decide C's were close enough? I don't know. Nasty fiber side seals for the rear main cap. And it is an original rope seal. Finally, time to get the crank out. Here's the number 1 main bearing, and it's got a little scrapey on it. I do have a date here of 8/69, so I think that's factory. Pretty much has to be. Well, I've got all the caps off, and the main journals are a little scratched. So I guess it's not a big deal that I totally nicked one of these journals and screwed it up really badly, because this need turned anyway. That's a shard of iron in my thumb. Unfortunately, I think the block is ultimately headed for a bore job as well. I do think we probably could have honed this and run it stock size, but it deserves the best, and that wouldn't have been the best. We do have rust in a couple cylinders, and I don't know that all that's going to go away. Plus, I might have allegedly goofed up at least one piston getting it apart. The number 4 piston and rod are both kind of rough at this point after all the abuse trying to get them out of there. I tried nice methods, and then I got a little nasty with it. The good news is I actually have a full set of 6-barrel 6-pack rods in this box, so if we need one of them, I'll donate it. We do still need to get the mounts and the dipstick tube off of this thing. Of course, I'm completely out of time, so that's going to be a later problem for someone else. In case you don't know, the crankshaft in this is the same forged crank used in a regular low-power 440. There's nothing special about that. Just the rods, obviously the special pistons, the counterweight, and, well, stuff on top. Other than the magic numbers, there's nothing special about the 446 barrel block either. A 440 is a 440 in that regard. Well, that was fun. I think we learned some stuff. This thing's greasy. I, for one, am looking forward to seeing it come back from the machine shop all clean and pretty. And then we'll bolt it back together and make it a 6-barrel engine again. At which point, it'll probably look something like this. Speaking of this, a quick note. A commenter on the last video said, "The exhaust manifolds weren't painted from the factory." Yeah, they were, guy. But you don't have to take my word for it. Here's a 440 for a Daytona restored by Mike Mancini. There's a reputable name in the Mopar world. What do you know? It's got orange painted exhaust manifolds. It's got an orange painted fuel pump too. Like so many things Chrysler, this could vary a little bit. I can't say I've ever seen one done correctly that was that thin in the middle, but you will see that. It's not like they were going out of their way to perfectly paint these exhaust manifolds, but they were on the engines when they were painted, and they got paint on them. Now, once an engine runs, the paint burns off. So you may not be used to seeing it like this, but that's the way the factory did it. It is truly amazing how many silly comments could just be a Google search. Oh look, a rocket video. All right, I'm tired and it's mega late. Time to go home. Hey, thanks for watching. And remember, triple the carburetors, triple the fun. Oh, what a horrible mess.